Okay. I would like to offer a rebuttal to Sarah's workability claim. Her first claim was that climate change is a natural process, and so it's difficult to accurately estimate the amount of greenhouse gases attributed to human activity. I would like to refer to a report by the U.S. Global Change Research Program, which concluded that warming of climate change is undeniable and due primarily to human-induced emissions of heat-trapping gases. This includes carbon dioxide. The report also determined that sizable early cuts in emissions would significantly reduce the pace and overall amount of climate change. Thus, implementing the Cap and Trade policy would help combat the climate change that we are trying to stop. There are also claims that greenhouse gases are naturally released, making it difficult to trace sources to polluters and regulate activities through a market-based system. Although this may be true to some extent, it cannot be denied that humans are responsible for much of the emissions we see causing pollution today. I believe there are sources which state it is hard to estimate the levels of carbon emissions due to human activity are questionable, because I found hard evidence from the Center for American Progress that coal-fired power plants and motor vehicles are responsible for about half of the U.S. global warming population. And as I mentioned earlier, fossil fuel power plants and oil refineries are responsible for 40% of the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions per year. The American Clean Energy and Security Act we are proposing be implemented nationally would reduce these emissions from these sources, significantly reducing the effects of climate change we are witnessing today. I would also like to address Sarah's second claim that the utility companies will find ways to avoid regulation. Now, as this policy has not been implemented nationally yet, there is only speculation as to how these companies will evade regulations based off of what we've seen happen in Europe and other countries. But we can look to examples from European Union's Cap and Trade policy and figure out ways to fix our policy over here before it is even implemented. This gives us the extraordinary chance to witness the flaws in the system and go about taking the necessary steps and precautions to fix them without having to experience the consequences of them here firsthand. It is highly unlikely to think that after seeing some hardships that have occurred in Europe's Cap and Trade policy and even in California's Cap and Trade policy on other greenhouse gas emissions, that we would do nothing to combat these problems when implementing a national policy. Their third claim is that the Cap and Trade policy can be pricey. I believe is exaggerated. There is concern that the cost of permits will be passed on to consumers. However, this is not entirely true. I would like to point out that although the Congressional Budget Office says the net annual cost of the Cap and Trade policy program would be $22 billion by the year 2020, this is only about $175 per household, much less than what some of the sources my opponent uses to claim. Now, this does not include the savings and price reductions that will occur as a result of energy efficiency and the adoption of renewable energy sources, according to this policy. Remember that utility companies will be required to reduce their dependence on fossil fuel and will be responsible for making sure 15% of their electricity comes from renewable sources by 2020. This will, in the end, save money for the utility companies. An article in the newspaper Transport Topics points out that some of that increase would be returned then to the consumers with a rebate that would return 40% of the money raised from Cap and Trade allowances. This should appeal to many households. Furthermore, a study by the U.S. government on the cost of ACES bills reports that when free allowances are phased out, electricity prices may increase, but this could be as little as 10%. The act of developing clean energy and reducing emissions is appealing to companies because it will allow them to bring in income and not spend more. They will be able to increase income because they can sell the permits that they gain from reducing emissions, and they can sell these permits they don't need to companies who have more difficulty evading these emissions. Thus, the Cap and Trade policy on carbon emissions is necessary and feasible.